Hey folks, well, where were you on July 10th, 1999? Oh, you don't remember where you were that day because it was 25 years ago? Well, what if I say where were you when Briana Chastain made that goal to give the U.S. women the World Cup? Now do you remember where you were? Well, our guest today remembers where she was because she was on the field when it happened. And welcome to this episode of Amy and T.J. Robes. You have seen me a lot. Once we get going here and we oftentimes greet our guests if they're on Zoom. We'll say hello to them just to, get a couple of pleasantries out of the way. You have seen me greet a lot of our guests. Describe the greeting I just gave her.
It was loud and enthusiastic and genuinely filled with just joy. Yeah.
I am as giddy as it gets because there are so many moments in our lives where sometimes they're tragic, that you know exactly where you were. Yeah. This is one of unbridled joy that collectively I think we had as a country 25 years ago that put us on a path now. Quite frankly, folks don't even understand why they love women's soccer right now. There might be some kids that don't even realize why they were introduced to it and how it came about. But that team 25 years ago was everything. To not just women's soccer, but maybe just women's athletics in this country.
It's so true. I think that was like the first time, I think as a woman, I felt proud of a female team in a way that, I obviously personally had nothing to do with it, but just the fact that we could and we did, and there were those of us proving other people wrong. That not only were we capable of such incredible acts of athleticism, but that people cared, people watched, and it mattered. And that was huge for little girls everywhere. I love what I read somewhere, someone wrote about this team, this U.S. women's soccer team. It is the team that taught America to love soccer.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was such a perfect way to put it.
That is so true. And again, I grew up, we both grew up in the South. We grew up in places where it was Friday night lights. Right?
Oh,
football.
High school
football. We didn't grow up. My parents, never a moment in my life ever crossed my mind that I would play soccer. But I'm watching this team now, and I watched pretty much everything. So it was one of those. Do you remember where you were? And sounds crazy. I was in Red Lobster.
You were working?
Well, Andy, why are you laughing?
You worked at Red Lobster. Were you working there, or were you
99 was my senior year of college.
Okay.
And I worked at Red Lobster. The shirt and everything had fish on it. Yes. Okay. But back then, and in Arkansas, there was you remember the days when restaurants used to have a smoking or a non-smoking section?
Yes, I
don't have that anymore.
Yep,
they don't even
remember that.
But at Red Lobster in Fayetteville, Arkansas, the smoking section is the one that had the TV.
That makes sense.
So I had to go into that section where the bar was to get drinks for my tables. People were struggling to get their drinks that night because as you walked out, the TV was above that walkway. So I would stop and stare at the screen and watch the game instead of delivering the Bud Light to the table.
Yeah, how were your tips that night?
I don't think I did well. And I didn't care. But we got all into it and caught up and watched that moment. But look, for women, we talk about Caitlin Clark these days. We talk about the WNBA and some of the superstars there. But these were the first superstars I remember in my life that were women that I looked up to, female athletes. That was a first in my life at that time.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Mia Hamm, we mentioned Briana Chastain. And wasn't there someone else who was very pivotal when things come down to PKs and you're holding your breath and you think, oh my God, I can't imagine being the kicker or the goalkeeper.
And the goalkeeper. Now, if take folks back to that match. It went full time. That means they played a full match and extra time, and the U.S. women and China did not score. It was 0-0. So we're going to penalty kicks.
Oof.
Everybody made the penalty kick except for one young lady from China. She was stopped by the U.S. goalkeeper. And that I know that Briana Chastain moment is iconic, and it will forever be there. But the only reason that moment could happen is because of a moment that Briana Scurry allowed to happen. She is the goalkeeper of that team. She's a 2-time gold medalist, World Cup champion, author of the book My Greatest Save, and she is a soccer Hall of Famer. And what else is she? She's here.
Yay! I know. I mean, if you all could have heard TJ say, "Oh my God, hello!" And yes, we are so honored, Briana, to have you here with us. It is just your smiling face. If everyone could see the beautiful backdrop you have, what a cool room. You've got your jerseys behind you. And just, you are not just an inspiration on the field. You have been one off the field because you have had quite the journey, as so many professional athletes do, coming from such highs and then having to deal with what happens after. You had a traumatic injury, a traumatic brain injury. And to be where you are now, just congratulations on all of your success and the young women and boys, I'm sure too, who you still inspire to this day. So thank you for all that you continue to do in keeping kids active and giving them hope and inspiration that anybody, if they put their heart and mind to it, can be what they want to be.
Is there any way I could possibly take the two of you on the road with me to do my intros for my speaking engagements?
Everybody needs a hype man. We will be your hype couple. Okay?
You be my hype people? I'm on my way to Phoenix tomorrow. Will you meet me there? You guys are awesome.
Hell yeah, we are free as of this moment.
You guys are great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy that it's 25 years, A. And B, that basically means that it was like half my life ago. So that's kind of nutty as well. And I love that when TJ was at the Red Lobster because my mom loved her some Red Lobster. That's hilarious. And it's great to be here. And Amy, great to see you as well. You guys I'm big fans of yours as well.
Oh.
So it's really awesome to be on with you guys today. That moment was incredible. I mean, it really was. But what's even more interesting about that moment, and TJ mentioned it, how normally a person, when they think about where they were when something happened, it's usually tragic.
Yeah.
It's usually a tragedy of some sort. But this time, for us, it's one of joy, great joy to be an American that day. So it was awesome. I mean, we not only impacted young girls all over the country, but all over the world. Really made them see what they could be, in time. And also, it was so funny for me to meet grown men in the airports in the years after, come up to me and tell me their story about where they were. And they were all emotional, They're like, and I was at the cabin with my buddies and we were like just jumping up and down when you guys won. And it was awesome. I'd never seen female sports before in my life, but that was awesome. It made me cry. And so stuff like that really is rewarding to hear.
Yeah, I was one of those guys. Yes, we have a group. But how long did it take you or did you have a good idea in the moment just how big the moment was? Because we were all watching and we were collected and seeing this was a cool moment, but it has to a lot of ways changed the course of history of athletics in this country in a lot of ways. How long did it take you to realize how big of a deal that was?
Well, I feel that anybody on my team except for Julie that says they understood what the moment was, I don't think they really did. Oh. And I am one of those that didn't. I mean, in terms of big moments, it was literally one save out of 1,000, right? But it was the moment that when the save was, under the circumstances it was under, the 107 degrees on the pitch, 90,000 people holding their collective breath about, after all this overtime. And so it was like the save heard around the world, and the ripple effect of that is really immeasurable, in my opinion. I mean, back then they didn't have women's athletic divisions and stores like Lululemon and Nike and Athleta. Like those things didn't exist back then, and now they do. All the other countries around the world now put resources into their women's teams at the national level. They didn't really before. All these other countries are really, trying to fund that, and it matters now. And FIFA, for example, as well, the governing body for soccer, we were just like an afterthought. They didn't even let us use the name FIFA Women's World Cup until fairly recently, right before that tournament. And so that's really what it means. Things just keep reverberating throughout, and all the players now. I just was in New Jersey the other day, and I met Alyssa Nair's mom, who's a goalkeeper on the team now. And she told me, and this is what's really cool about it, she told me that she and her daughter were at the game in the Meadowlands, the 1999, the first game we played, and she was like 8 years old
Oh,
or 9 years old. And she said that they were there. And she said thank you to me for changing the trajectory of her daughter's life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that it's been and how it's affected people. And that's the kind of stuff I didn't quite understand at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even that long ago that kick like a girl, throw like a girl, run like a girl was a negative thing that you said to somebody. You weren't trying hard enough. You weren't doing it strong enough. You weren't doing it fast enough. And you all proved everybody wrong, and things started to shift from that moment on. Looking back and just seeing how you came up, you had so many firsts. I love that you were the baby of 9 kids too, by the way.
Yes.
That's awesome. But you were the only girl on a boys football team. You were the only black girl on the soccer team. Who did you look to? Who could you even potentially have modeled yourself after? How did you know that you could do it? You could be the one.
Well, I got really lucky, to tell you the truth. My mom and dad were truly my initial inspiration and support. My dad always used to say, always be first. And at the time he was telling me that, he was referring to the bus stop. He's like, oh, get out there. Don't wait till the bus, comes. And I'm like, Dad, well, we're all going to get on the bus. And he's like, no.
That's awesome.
He's like, you want to be the first one in line. And I was like, all right, fine, and I was like, And then he also would always tell me to keep my eye on the ball. And at the time I was like, what are you talking about? What ball? Like, what do you mean by that? But he was instilling in me all these one-liners, A, but B, these lessons that are so pivotal and important for a young person to understand that gets them to where they want to go in their life. And so when I said I wanted to be an Olympian at age 8, my mom and dad were right there with me. They fortunately didn't think it was silly or goofy or didn't say, oh, well, girls can't do that. And honey, that's really hard. So maybe shoot a little bit lower. No. They were like, you can be anything you set your mind to. So beginning in my life, basically, that was number one, was my mom and dad. And then I had a couple of inspirations in sport. So basketball was actually my favorite. Not soccer. Soccer was like number 3. It was like in a football, like American football, basketball, and then soccer was number 3.
Well, which one were you best at early on?
Washington. You remember Pearl Washington played at Syracuse?
Okay.
He was my inspiration. Him and Cheryl Miller, who played at USC.
Of course. Oh, Cheryl.
Yeah, you remember Cheryl?
Of course.
Way back when. Yeah, so they were my inspirations on the court, but still inspirations nonetheless.
Well, what were you better at early on? Basketball, football, or soccer?
Right, I know, right? I thought I was better at football.
Okay.
In 4th and 5th grade.
All right.
But the trade-off I made a deal with my mom. She's like, you can play football as long as you play in the lightweight division. I was like, yes. Okay. And that was 2 years. And I tried to negotiate one more year, and she said no. So I had to replace it, and I replaced it with soccer. Huh. So it all worked out in the end, I guess. Right?
And it was an afterthought.
But I was much better as a goalkeeper than anything else.
And
I was
to me,
All-American in high school as a goalkeeper.
Watching the goalkeeper, I mean, this one right here can't stand when it goes to penalty kicks. He's so stressed out. And I was like, can you imagine I'm always thinking the parent of the kid or the guy or the girl who's sitting there and all the pressure is on you. You don't get a lot of the glory, but you have all of the pressure. Yeah. Did you immediately gravitate towards being a goalkeeper? How did that come about?
You guys so get it. I love it. You get it. You totally get it. Like goalkeeping is like ultra high pressure, ultra low reward.
Yep.
And being a forward is the opposite. Like as a forward, you can miss 5 out of 7 chances and be the star making 2 goals, but I can't miss 5 out of 7 chances.
Nope.
Or I
It's
look
true.
like, like I'm about to get yanked out of the game.
Yes.
But I actually really loved goalkeeping because I could control the fate of the other team. I learned that very early on in my life, that I could control whether the other team could win or not. And I really liked that. I closet control freak, as it turned out. But so I wasn't really thinking at all about, boy, this goal is really big. 266 balls can fit across the face of a goal, and only one has to go in. So that thing is huge. And I was like, you know what? This is my place. And I absolutely loved it. And I figured I can control the other team's fate. And it turns out I was right.
So wait a minute. The U.S. women's national team won a World Cup in 1999 because you decided you were a control freak. I mean, I'm just putting it in the simplest terms, but that's what I just heard you say. Okay.
From one control freak to the other.
Can I ask, though, because we differ on this, because we've just finished watching the Euro Cup. We are hardcore. We're in it when anytime there's an international competition. And Copa America, we watched all of that as well. We did.
Yes.
Do you like penalty kicks as a Soccer Hall of Famer? Because my opinion is that, you know what, they just fight it out. I would hate for it to come down to who can make a penalty kick, versus I would rather it decided on the pitch during the match. Robes is kind of the opposite effect. She likes the drama.
Kicks.
So you, as a goalie, what do you prefer?
I have to honestly say that I prefer my team to win the game beforehand.
Yeah.
Not because I don't like penalties. I absolutely embrace them. Why? Because I'm going to have to do it at some point. It just don't, you're going to have to deal with it as a goalkeeper, and you may as well be great at it, because it's going to happen at the most inopportune time in the biggest moments of your life, because there's no penalties until, the knockout round. And so that's for all the marbles, if you can't handle the PK, then you're going home. So you better figure it out. And so like we saw the Euros and Copa, the best goalkeepers in those tournaments were saving, 1, 2, 3 PKs sometimes. Yeah. And I mean, they were the hero. And then the very next game comes and they basically forget about him. So you got to do your part.
It's so true.
When it's your turn, right? And that's all it is to it. You gotta earn your keep.
You'll remember, was it Portugal? There was a goalie who went to penalty kicks. He was stopping everything. He was the greatest man. He was everything.
To your point, we can't remember.
3 in a row.
But next match,
3 in a row.
They got everything past him the next match.
Yep, they did, exactly.
How much pressure
is that? Right, and nobody said a word about him.
Yeah, it's true. It's done. How much pressure? Like, can you describe what it feels like? Yes. What it feels like when everything is on the line. You're exhausted from playing for as long and as hard as you all have. What does it feel like to be the goalkeeper in those moments?
Well, for me, I was excited because I was like, we're going to win this thing.
Wow.
Now that I can control it. So my mission was to save one, absolutely save one, maybe two. And then everybody else's job was to make one. It was that simple. Save one, make one. And so that's the mindset we had. We trained it and everything. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking. But once that referee blew that final whistle, I was like, okay, it's on. Now it's my turn to do my thing. And I don't watch my teammates kick because that's not my job. That's not my part. So I don't even put that in my mind. I just listen to the crowd reaction.
Okay. Wow. Wait, okay. Now you're talking. Now we're going full soccer fan now. Okay. In those moments when you're standing there, what is that goalie's strategy? This is one-on-one. Like you said, there are 266 spots that ball can go into. What is your strategy? Have you studied each of the other players and know where they're more prone to go? Is it just a guess? Do you wait for them to react? What do you do actually?
That's a great question, TJ. There's 2 trains of thought on that. Some goalkeepers guess, some read. I'm a reader. So I read where the hips are. I read the distance from the ball. I read the angle of the approach. You can see if you train it enough, and then also you go on instinct. So I actually marry the 2 together. But I will say this, on that third kicker against China, I knew I was going to save it before I even got in the goal.
You just had a gut feeling.
I had a gut feeling. I would normally walk into the goal and not even look at them because I was saying earlier, I only focused on what was my job. But for some reason, when I was walking into the goal on that third kicker, something in my mind said, look. I heard the word look in my mind, and I looked at her, and I'm like, this is the one. And I knew I was going to save it before I even got in there.
I get that.
And sure enough, I did. And somebody was like, well, what if you were called back because you were off the line? I said, you know what? No matter where she was kicking it, I was going to save it.
Yeah, I get that. I know that feeling. where you know when you're going to mess up before you do it, and you know when you're going to nail it before you do it. But that's so cool.
When you remember a moment you've had?
On television, 100%.
That you knew you were going to nail it.
Yes.
You nailed it.
Yes. Yes. And then there were times when I knew I was going to choke, and I did.
Oh, wow. I can remember some of those times.
They're recorded for all to see.
The moment, I hope the making was there for you, and not the choking.
No, but there's just like this.
Keeping it real.
If you're in touch with, I don't know, with the energy of everything, I feel like you can sense it.
It's a real thing. It's real. Like athletes always talk about how the world slows down or the ball looks bigger or I'm going in slow motion. Like you can feel it. You can feel that. It's almost like the universe like just kind of comes together for you and you get it.
I agree.
You said the universe, and you're talking her language now, and she's got me on board this idea of not ignoring the signs that the universe gives you. Don't just say, you could have been out there and gone, some random, I didn't really hear a voice, or you could have done all kinds of things, but you didn't ignore it. You listened to it, and it all worked out. That's something you taught me, Rose.
I mean, I truly believe that. I mean, it's funny, even when I just did my little gymnastics, I knew before I got on the beam whether or not I was going to fall or not. Like I really did. I was like, this isn't going to be good, or I'm going to nail this. I'm not, and it was I don't know, like it's unexplainable, but you feel it.
It is hard to explain. I've been years and years and years. Every time I say, I knew I was going to save it, people were like, come on, no, really? I'm like, really?
I believe it.
Really?
Usually for me, it's just, wow, I hope this goes well.
Fingers crossed.
That's all I can hope for, right?
I get that. I get it. I totally get it.
Do you commemorate? What do your anniversaries look like, right? I know 25 is a big one, but does the team get together? Do you all do a video chat? Do you text? Or do the anniversaries come and go?
We are some texting fools, gotcha. TJ. I mean, we have this text chain that is just like everybody's birthday, everybody's this, everybody's that. I mean, we celebrate each other all the time. But just recently, just this last weekend, we were all in New Jersey for the July 13th game of the current team. And we had our anniversary celebration, and every single player on that 99 team was there for the first time in like 25 years.
That is so cool. And
every single one.
And this new team is on their way to Paris if they're not already there now.
They're there.
They're
in Marseille right now.
What are you seeing? What do you think's going to happen? What do you think they're going to be able to do?
Whew. Well, that's a great question. So Emma Hayes, let's start with her, the coach now. I've known her for a long time. She was actually in the country coaching for many years here in the United States. So I've known her for years, and she invited the team, 99ers, to have lunch with the current team. And it was a stroke of genius, in my opinion. And we told them what it would take to win, and we told them what we saw in them. And for me, I saw that team had the talent to shock the world and win the whole thing. And even though they're young and 9 of them are brand new to the Olympics, it's their first time, and a lot of people are saying they're not playing that well, and yada, 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 none of that stuff matters. Come game 1, game 2, all you have to do is be present. That's something else I told them. Run the game plan. You got to believe in it. The 22 of you are the only thing that matters in this room. Nothing else, not social media, not reporters, not your parents, not your family, nothing. You control it and you decide. Now, if the 22 of you can do that together and get all your arrows going in the same direction, you could get that gold and bring it home. So that's what I feel. I mean, I'm always going to bet on them, but I told them that they could do it.
You said
not that they needed my help.
This is so cool that you said something that almost seems unfathomable. That the U.S. women's national team could win a tournament and it would be a shock. Because we're so used to the U.S. women's national team being stellar, being elite. And in fact, you know this, obviously, but maybe people don't, dropped to its lowest ranking, number 5. Like, that's terrible or something. But had a 20-year... It is? Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm speaking out of turn. But for us, that was a 20-year stretch of just being number 1 and number 2. And there were 6-year stretches within that stayed at number 1. So explain or maybe even calm down some people who are so used to the success, which is great. We are trained to think that this team is going to win every tournament. What has happened that has gotten the team that's from, I know, 1 or 2 to number 5 and now not necessarily a favorite going into the Olympics? What have you seen this team do over the last couple of years that's gotten it to not being 1 or 2?
So it's 2 things, TJ. Honestly, we are a product. This is a product of our own success.
Yeah.
So the rock that was dropped in the lake and the ripple effects of that are other, countries, Spain, France, England, all these other countries, Brazil, pouring more resources into their women's national team. And guess what? That means a direct impact on our current team to have to play against them. And Spain is fantastic now. They've been great for many, many decades on the men's side, and now their women's side is playing similarly. Why? Because they have more resources. Same with England. They made it to the final last year in the Women's World Cup, and they're up for it. They're feisty. They're expecting something to happen for themselves. They believe in it. They see us do it. They're like, why not us? And so that has been the number 1 reason. Number 2 is, I think, honestly, because the team is really young. And so we haven't won the Olympics since 2012. But if you look at our history, when we don't win Olympics, we win the World Cup. When we don't win the World Cup, we win the Olympics. And so now people are like, well, this team, hasn't won much of anything, most of these players, but don't count them out. I mean, we know what's expected of us, and those young players know. They're expected to win. Whenever you put that jersey on, whether you've been there for a minute or 10 years, the expectation is to win.
Yeah.
They understand.
You mentioned resources, and that's been, of course, a huge news story over the last several years. Megan Rapinoe, among many, leading the way. Where are you on, and where is U.S. women's soccer in terms of resources and getting what they need to be the best they can be?
Well, the one thing that was the most important thing that happened is one of my teammates is now president of the Soccer Federation. Bingo! That was a big thing to have happen, right? And so she got in there and she handled it. She actually said, Cindy said to me a while ago, I saw her when we were here at the White House a couple of months back. She said, I got tired of complaining from the outside in. And she's like, I decided I was going to do something on the inside. And she got the vice presidency and ascended to the presidency. Mm. And so she's the one that really spearheaded that understanding that the women deserve equal pay. And why is that? Because their ticket receipts, their raters, the ratings, they're in bringing in their sponsorships. For the 4-year period that U.S. Soccer does budgeting, they were equal to or just above the men. And so once you got that piece in line, along with someone who understood it matters, and then talking to the men's team, they were able to secure that understanding and get that equity done. And so that's very recent. And now you have all this other income coming in with broadcasting, the TV rights and licensing and different, sponsorships that are long-term, more of a partnership than ever before with the Federation. These companies are pouring millions and tens of millions of dollars in. And so that is really helping now. So we're on a really good footing, and we have the same contract. Those women have the same contract as the men do for national teams.
You mentioned contracts there, and you mentioned TV rights. We were talking about USA and the Federation and soccer, but the National Women's Soccer League, which obviously has reaped so many benefits from what you all did 25 years ago. TV rights just signed a new deal for $240 million, a long-term deal. The deal before that was worth $4.5 million.
Isn't that crazy?
That's insane. But it's insane. But it's also insane in a good way in that, wow, look at how this is exploding and people are watching soccer. So you talk about receipts for women, 26% attendance was up last year at National Women's Soccer Games, 41% viewership increase. People are watching. So some of it is, yes, pouring resources is great, but you got to have some viewership, and it's going up, 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 up. I know, Rye, that this is so prideful for you, and you're not going to take, obviously, some individual credit for it. But to hear those types of things, to go from $240 million for a TV deal when it was just $4.5 million the time before, what pride wells up in you when you see a Caitlin Clark, when you see women's athletics and the WNBA continuing to grow the way it does? What wells up in you when you think about the contribution you and your teammates made 25 years ago?
TJ, it's the greatest honor of my life, honestly. I mean, other than my marriage to my sweetheart and being in the Smithsonian, the National African American Museum of History and Culture, other than those two things,
those are pretty
it's
big.
one of the greatest honors of my life, because that means that something I did started something that was greater than me. And we all can contribute and all take some credit for that. And not only that, though, so when you look at those numbers and you look at like 2 years ago, 3 years ago versus now, I mean, just the other day, they were talking about the Angel City team going up for $250 million to Bob Iger and one of his partners at Disney. And that team cost $2 million to get into the league when they first started like 4 seasons ago. And so it's astronomical, but women's sports is having a moment. I think what's happened is people realize that it's not just a novelty anymore, and it's not a charity anymore, and that it's actual business. It's a real growth business where you can get in on this thing and really ride it to the moon. And it's got great possibilities, great opportunities. And the Caitlin Clark effect, aside from that, has been really phenomenal for women's sports. WNBA has been around, I think, 26 years, 28 years, something like that. Finally getting the recognition it's deserved. And those women have been fighting for equity forever. And now finally getting all the eyeballs on it. One of the most amazing stats I saw about WNBA was last year's All-Star voting. The highest player to get voting was like 90,000. The highest player this year was like 850,000. That's almost a 10-fold increase.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I keep getting chills.
And it took a lot of people to get there. And I absolutely love it.
And you were such a huge part of it. You know, I was reading up on everything, Briana, and I was blown away at what you have done and what you've been through since your professional career ended with a traumatic injury in 2010. And as much as successes you had, all of the accolades that you have built, I mean, just phenomenal. You found yourself in such a dark place 3 years after you were forced out of the game you love. You were so low that you ended up pawning your 2 gold medals.
I did.
Can you talk about what that moment was like and how you pulled yourself up and out of it?
So that moment was like one of my darkest moments of my life, and I've had a few. And I think it's because my first gold in '96 at the Atlanta Olympics was the culmination of all the times that my mom and dad spent driving me from A to B, driving me here, supporting me there, and all the people that I played with and everyone that's ever supported me, my coaches, my teammates. And so I felt that when I was at the verge of pawning that, I actually wanted to turn around and not do it. But I was like, I have to. I don't have stability. I'm in a crater, and I'm sinking. And then this is the only way I saw financially that I could get some stability. Now, just to be clear, I pawned them. I did not sell them. So I still had ownership as long as I'm making that payment. But I did it, and I hated it. After I took the medal to the shop in downtown New York, I got back in my car and I cried. I cried for like an hour. I mean, the tears just rolling off my face, and I was in such a bad place. I mean, I recently went 2 years ago to the place I lived, the little studio apartment in Little Falls, New Jersey. I lived in, and this room I'm in right now, my office, is just about the same size. A little bit bigger, that studio. But I went in there and I was like, wow, I spent years in this place. And no wonder I was so messed up. I mean, it was crazy. And it's interesting because people always talk about how things look different, but it's actually you're different. Things are the same, like places you live. Maybe some furniture has been moved around, but you are not the same anymore. And so I really grew from that. And I'm actually now grateful for it because, just so you guys know.
Yeah, there. She's reaching over. There it is.
There they are.
There she is.
1990.
I got them back.
You got them back. How long were you without them?
It was about 8 months.
Damn.
And then my current wife found out. I told her. She was the only one I told. I didn't tell anybody that I did this. She's the only one I told, and literally in the next 72 hours, I had them back. She's like, "Where are they? Let's go right now."
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she was not messing around.
Wow.
But your plan was always to get them back.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. So I needed some stability because I was tired of depending on the kindness and the consideration, generosity of my landlord, because I kept only being able to pay partial payments of my rent because the insurance company that was paying me disability would decide on a whim to not pay it. And then I'd have to go to court and fight them for it, and that would take months. It was just such a nerve-wracking situation. And I went through all my savings, and I was a little bit proud, I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit proud to ask for help. And I was, I was in this hole in this place, and I just felt bad. And I'm sure I could have asked my teammates for help, and they would have done it, but I just couldn't. I couldn't do it.
You never did? You never did?
Never did.
That's
no.
I get that, though. You're at the highest of highs, and then you find yourself at the lowest of lows. And how do you reconcile those two things? And it came about because of a concussion, a traumatic brain injury you had. And that insurance company, I think anyone who's had a medical issue of any kind and it has had to deal with an insurance company, when I read what you had to do, you actually hired a PR firm.
Yep.
And that was the only way you eventually got them to pay for a surgery that you desperately needed. That when you woke up, it was the first day in 3 years you didn't have a headache. I mean, that was egregious.
Amazing. It is egregious. I agree. And my wife, who actually owns that PR firm, thought it was egregious as well. And she threatened the insurance company. She's like, "Look, you either do right by this woman. She is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist and a World Cup champion, and you are messing around with her money. You're messing around with her health. Her doctors have said this is what you need to do. The courts have judged against you every single time you've taken her to court. You need to do the right thing by her, or I'm going to tell everybody." Wow. And we're talking about USA Today. We're talking about a national campaign. She's like, you have 48 hours to handle it. Wow. And they did. They caved. Ever since she went in there and told them what she was going to do, they just caved, and it's been uphill, downhill, I guess you would say, upward ever since.
Wow.
Because once you had that surgery, how did your life change?
It was, so I don't know if you guys have ever experienced chronic pain before, but it's almost like you like it to a low hum, in your ear and in your life. It's like seeping the energy out of your body, this chronic pain. And it weighs on you, and it zaps your intensity and your imagination. And for me, it was everything. It just keeps bringing you down. It's like this weight. And until you get it off of you, you don't realize how long you've been adjusting to your life with that chronic pain. And so once I woke up, I could feel it was gone, like immediately. And I just started crying again. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's gone." And I opened my eyes, and because it was always in the same spot behind my left ear. Just like, little like, and so it was finally gone. And I just started crying because I couldn't believe it. And you don't realize it till after it's gone, how long you've been dealing with it. And then it was all, fighting and clawing my way back to me from there.
But as we sit here today, after all that you did go through, tell us how you're doing. I asked that with a background, the context being where I know I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and after I went through some very difficult things, and even some of the most difficult things I've been through in my life, some of it happened in the past couple of years.
What are you talking about?
To know that I could sit here and be happier and healthier than I ever am, than I've ever been, and to be at peace. I always ask people in that kind of context, you pawned 2 gold medals. You pawned gold medals, and you got it back, and you went through all this hell. where are you now? How is Briana Scurry doing today?
Well, let me just say this, TJ. When I saw that I was going to interview with you guys, I had a feeling that you were in a good place because I watched I watched TV in the morning shows, and I knew what would happen and went down. And the fact that I was going to talk to you guys, I was like, yes, because I am all for the underdog. I mean, people who are resilient, you are stronger because you go through some heavy, and if you can come out on the other side of it, it can become part of your foundation. And now you know what, I can face some crazy stuff and I can get through it and I can do it. And so for me, I am fantastic right now. I mean, I have a better life than I ever thought possible. And people are like, really? I'm like, yeah, really. So, I mean, I have an amazing wife. I have a really great family. My stepkids are awesome. We live in a fantastic home. We're both very successful. I get to talk about myself for a living. Are you kidding me? Really? Like, holy cow. I have great partnerships. I have great, people that I get to work with. I get to share my journey. 2 years ago, I wrote a book and I did a documentary, and I mean, and I haven't had validation. I've had validation in some of the stuff that I didn't realize that I was going through back then. Have those things be validated for me now. And so the universe, once again, has come back around and given me what I deserved multiplied. And I really, truly believe that. And so for me today, I'm grateful for all of it. I mean, most people would say, oh, well, Brian, you were standing on the edge of a waterfall thinking about jumping in knowing you can't swim, and you're grateful for that? Yes, I am. Because ever since that moment, I've gone straight up. And so there's nothing I can't do. And I use that and I tell everything to people because I know in the crowd, when I talk to people in your audience need to hear exactly what I'm saying. And they may not even be aware of it, or they may not be, willing to talk to anybody about it, but you can be resilient. You can get up 8 times after you get knocked down 7 times. And actually you'll be stronger in the fighting of that situation. And you'll look back on it and it'll be a lesson that you take forward and learn and make you into a better you. And it's hard to understand that at the time when you're in it, but as someone who's been in it, you know what I'm talking about, TJ. You can talk about that because you've been in it.
So you said Phoenix. You're in Phoenix next? We'll see you in Phoenix.
Right.
We need to come to Phoenix.
Yeah.
Briana, we knew this was going to be a great conversation, but it's even better than we expected. It's not only going through what you went through, but being willing to be vulnerable and talk about it. It's not easy. And it's painful, and reliving it is also not fun sometimes. But what you're sharing is so important for people to hear, because there are moments, I think, that most people go through in life where they think they can't stand another second, they can't stand another minute, and yet somehow when you see someone else do it and someone else go through it, you have the courage and strength to do it too. So thank you for sharing your story. And I know I'm going to buy your book today. I'm so excited. My greatest save. And I think we all can learn from each other, but certainly thank you for letting us learn from you.
Yeah, we got to go out and buy it. Usually our guests send it to us for free, but it's okay. we'll support you, Brian. It's okay. We're going to support the cause. We're going to support.
Thank you. It's also an audiobook, and I audiobook.
That's my favorite. You know what?
My voice.
That's what I'm going to do.
Voice. 8 hours of my voice.
You know what? We're training for another marathon, and I love listening to books when I run. So you know what? You just sealed it. That is, I have a 12-miler this weekend. We have one, and I will be.
Wow.
We
broke up. We broke up real fast, didn't we?
We have a 12-miler this weekend, and I will be listening to your voice. You have my I'm so excited now.
Awesome.
To listen to.
Thank you so much, both of you, and it's so fantastic to be on with you guys, and I'm so happy that you're happy.
Yeah.
We are happy that you're happy.
That's fantastic.
And you have added to our happiness.
Yeah.
thank you so much. Whenever you're in New York again, we're going to exchange information. I'm serious. I'm not kidding. Our producers know. We always ask for the info for our guests.
Yes.
And we
the
will
ones
be
that
in
we
touch.
like.
That's a good point. Damn, I shouldn't have.
I would love it. I would love it. Absolutely.
She's right. All right. Well, dear lady, thank you so much. Congrats on everything, and appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you both. It's so fantastic to see you. I appreciate you both. Thank you so much.
That is so awesome, Robes. Okay, wow. that went better than I.
You were so excited about talking to her, and you know what? People always say, "Be careful when you meet your heroes or you meet someone because they disappoint you oftentimes."
We've had some bad ones.
I would say Briana exceeded all like just such a beautiful, kind soul.
And we'll let you all know we wanted this to happen in studio because we knew that the team was going to be in New Jersey right here. So that was the request, but we ended up being out of town.
Right.
And we weren't able to be here. And that, we should have canceled our trip to Italy so we could stay here in studio with Brian. But that was great. So, folks, we appreciate you as always spending some time with us. You can find us on our official Instagram page at Amy and TJ Podcast. You were jumping in because you thought I was going to forget, didn't you?
You always remember, though. Even if you just pause a little bit, you always get it. Nail it. Not me.
Well, folks, stay with us. We will see you again very, very soon.